The Unlikely Alliance, Jawaharlal Nehru and the Dalai Lama's exile in India. In the grand tapestry of history, there are moments so profound, so charged with emotion and meaning, that they transcend time and geography, resonating across generations like an eternal echo. These moments often arise not from grand gestures or sweeping declarations, but from deeply personal acts of courage, humanity, and moral clarity. One such moment unfolded in 1959, a year etched into the collective memory of humanity, not merely as a date on a calendar, but as a turning point laden with hope, fear, and resilience. It was during this tumultuous period that a young monk, his spirit unbroken yet weary from persecution, embarked on a perilous journey to escape oppression. Each step he took carried the weight of uncertainty, each breath drawn under the shadow of danger, yet propelled by an unwavering belief in freedom and dignity. When he finally found refuge in the arms of a nation whose leader stood as a beacon of justice and compassion, it was more than just an act of asylum. It was a testament to the power of empathy and shared humanity. That leader, whose heart beat not for political gain, but for the principles of righteousness, faced a decision fraught with complexity. To open borders and offer sanctuary was no small matter. It required vision, resolve, and an unshakable faith in the values that bind us all as human beings. Can you imagine the weight of that decision? The sleepless nights, the deliberations, the knowledge that every choice would ripple outward, shaping not only individual lives but also the moral fabric of nations. And what of the courage it took to extend a hand when the world was watching, waiting, judging? In an era where global politics often favored expediency over ethics, where silence could be mistaken for neutrality, this act of defiance against apathy spoke volumes. It challenged the status quo, daring others to rise above indifference and embrace their shared responsibility toward those in need. This singular moment became a prism through which future generations would reflect on the essence of leadership, not defined by titles or territories, but by the willingness to stand firm in the face of adversity, to choose compassion over convenience, and to remind the world that even in its darkest hours, humanity has the capacity to shine brightly. The prelude to exile. A nation shattered Tibet, the roof of the world, had long been a sanctuary of serenity, its snow-capped peaks whispering ancient truths about impermanence and peace. For centuries, it stood as a bastion of spiritual wisdom, where prayer flags fluttered in harmony with the winds, carrying hopes and dreams across vast landscapes. Yet beneath this tranquil exterior lay vulnerabilities that no mountain could shield, no prayer could fully protect. What happens when the winds of change sweep through even the highest mountains? What happens when power, greed, and ideology collide with spirituality and tradition, shattering the delicate balance of an entire culture? In 1959, tensions reached a breaking point. Tibetans rose up against Chinese oppression, their cries echoing not only across valleys and monasteries, but also reverberating through history itself. The air was thick with desperation and defiance, as families clung to their faith while facing the looming threat of annihilation. For the Dalai Lama, then just 23 years old, the weight of leadership pressed heavily upon his shoulders. His youth belied the immense responsibility he bore. Every decision carried consequences far beyond himself. Stay and risk imprisonment, or worse, becoming a martyr for a cause still fragile and besieged, or leave behind everything he knew: the sacred land, the people who revered him, the very essence of his identity, trusting that fate would guide him to safety. Imagine standing at that crossroads, your heart torn between duty and survival. Every breath must have felt like a negotiation with destiny, every thought a tug-of-war between hope and despair. How do you decide when every path seems fraught with peril? And so, under the cover of darkness, disguised as an ordinary soldier, the Dalai Lama began his harrowing escape. Each step took him farther from the Potala Palace, the seat of his spiritual authority, yet closer to an uncertain future. Over icy passes where frostbite gnawed at exposed skin, through treacherous terrain where avalanches loomed like silent predators, he walked, not alone, but accompanied by a small group of loyal followers who shared his resolve. They moved like shadows, evading patrols and enduring hardships that tested their endurance to the brink. But this journey was never about one man's survival. It was about preserving the soul of a nation, safeguarding its traditions, and ensuring that its voice would not be silenced. Could anyone have guessed where this journey would lead? Would they find refuge? Or would they be turned away, left to face the void of exile without allies? To whom would he turn when all seemed lost? The answer lay ahead, in lands unknown, among strangers who might yet become friends. But for now, each step forward required immense courage, not just physical but emotional and spiritual. With every mile traversed, the Dalai Lama carried not only his own burdens, but also the hopes of millions who looked to him as a beacon of hope, a living symbol of resilience amid chaos. Nehru's compassionate welcome, a moral stand. Enter Jawaharlal Nehru, the first Prime Minister of independent India, a man whose mind was steeped in philosophy and whose soul yearned for justice, a thinker, a dreamer, and a statesman. Nehru carried within him the weight of a newly liberated nation still finding its footing on the global stage. Yet, his vision extended far beyond the borders of India. He saw humanity as one interconnected tapestry where the suffering of one thread inevitably weakened the whole. When word reached him of the Dalai Lama's plight, of a young spiritual leader fleeing persecution, carrying with him the hopes of an entire people, Nehru faced a question that philosophers and leaders have grappled with for centuries. What is the greater good? Should one prioritize pragmatism over principle? Or should one act from the depths of one's conscience, regardless of consequences? To Nehru, the answer was clear, almost instinctual. How can we close our doors to someone fleeing tyranny? He asked rhetorically in Parliament, his voice steady but laced with conviction. Is not compassion the very essence of civilization? These words, simple yet profound, cut through the noise of political maneuvering and strategic calculations. They reminded those who heard them, and continue to remind us today, that leadership is not merely about power or policy. It is about moral courage. It is about recognizing the humanity in others, even when it comes at a cost. In a world often driven by fear, self-interest, and the relentless pursuit of advantage, how rare it is to find a leader willing to put humanity above politics. How extraordinary it is when such a leader emerges, choosing to stand on the side of justice rather than expediency. On March 31st, 1959, as the Dalai Lama stepped onto Indian soil, weary but resolute, he was met not with hostility, but with open arms. This moment was more than a diplomatic gesture. It was an act of profound solidarity. The warmth of that reception spoke volumes, not just about the character of Jawaharlal Nehru, but about the values that underpinned the fledgling democracy he led. Was this mere diplomacy, or something far greater? A testament to the shared values of two ancient civilizations bound by karma and dharma. Perhaps it was both. For India, a land shaped by millennia of spiritual inquiry and ethical reflection, the decision to welcome the Dalai Lama was not just a political choice, but a reaffirmation of its own identity. It was a recognition that compassion, like truth, transcends boundaries, and that true strength lies in the ability to embrace vulnerability, not only in oneself, but also in others. Building a new home. Dharamshala, the land of refuge. Dharamshala, nestled in the foothills of the Himalayas, became more than just a place of exile. It became a symbol of resilience and renewal, a testament to the indomitable human spirit. Here, amidst pine forests that whispered secrets to the wind and misty mornings that painted the landscape with an ethereal glow, the Dalai Lama embarked on the monumental task of rebuilding not only his life, but also the soul of Tibet itself. Schools were established, their walls echoing with the laughter of children who would carry forward the legacy of their ancestors. Monasteries rose from the ground, their spires reaching skyward as if in prayer, while chants of devotion filled the air, binding the community together in shared purpose. Cultural festivals, once silenced under oppression, were revived with vibrant colors, music, and dance, breathing new life into traditions thought to be endangered. Each brick laid, each prayer chanted, was a declaration etched into the annals of history. We may be displaced, but we are not defeated. But why did Nehru go beyond providing mere shelter? Why did he invest so much in preserving Tibetan identity, ensuring that this small town in the hills could become a thriving cultural sanctuary? Perhaps because he understood a universal truth, one that transcended borders and ideologies, that culture and faith are the threads that weave us together, giving meaning to our existence. They are the anchors that hold us steady in turbulent times, the compasses that guide us when all else seems lost. Without them, we are adrift, like leaves scattered by the wind, disconnected from our roots and uncertain of our direction. Nehru's vision extended beyond immediate humanitarian aid. It was rooted in the belief that protecting cultural heritage is essential for humanity's collective progress. By supporting the establishment of institutions like the Tibetan Children's Villages and the Library of Tibetan Works and Archives, he ensured that future generations would inherit not just memories of a distant homeland, but living, breathing connections to their past. In doing so, he affirmed that India's embrace was not merely one of refuge, but of reverence for the dignity of a people and the richness of their traditions. Through these efforts, Dharamshala transformed into more than a haven. It became a beacon of hope, proving that even in the face of unimaginable loss, it is possible to rebuild, to flourish, and to endure. A delicate balancing act, walking the tightrope. Of course, Nehru's decision was not without cost. China, angered by India's hospitality, accused it of meddling in its affairs, framing the act of granting refuge to the Dalai Lama as an affront to sovereignty. Tensions simmered along the contested borders, where whispers of conflict grew louder with each passing year, eventually boiling over into the Sino-Indian War of 1962, a brutal and humbling chapter in India's history. The war tested Nehru's leadership and left scars on the nation, both physical and psychological. Did Nehru regret his choice? Did he ever lie awake at night, wondering if kindness had come at too high a price? It is tempting to imagine him grappling with doubt, questioning whether compassion could coexist with pragmatism in the unforgiving arena of international politics. Yet, here lies another lesson for us all, a reminder that life rarely offers clear-cut answers, especially when navigating the labyrinth of morality and power. Life is full of contradictions, isn't it? Sometimes, doing the right thing means stepping into the unknown, embracing complexity, and accepting that the consequences may be uncertain or even painful. To lead is to walk a tightrope, balancing ideals against realities, principles against pressures. And perhaps this is what makes acts of courage so profound. They are not devoid of fear or hesitation, but arise despite them. As Mahatma Gandhi once said, "The future depends on what you do today." What Nehru did in 1959 was more than a political maneuver. It was an investment in humanity's shared values. He planted a seed of hope, a seed watered by resilience, nurtured by faith, and shielded from cynicism. Decades later, that seed continues to blossom, reminding us that while wars may erupt and alliances may shift, the enduring legacy of compassion transcends the transient nature of geopolitics. In welcoming the Dalai Lama, Nehru did not just offer shelter to a displaced leader. He affirmed the timeless truth that nations, like individuals, are judged not solely by their might, but by their capacity to uplift others, even in the face of adversity. Legacy of friendship, the ripple effect. Fast forward to today. Walk through the bustling streets of McLeod-Ganj, and you'll see monks in maroon robes mingling with tourists, their quiet dignity blending seamlessly with the vibrant energy of visitors from around the globe. Children laugh outside schools, their voices carrying the promise of a future shaped by resilience and hope. Prayer flags flutter in the breeze, each one inscribed with aspirations for peace, compassion, and healing. Isn't this proof that even in the darkest times, light can prevail, that even when nations clash and borders divide, individuals can still connect across cultures, languages, and beliefs. This small corner of India stands as living testimony to the power of empathy, a place where displacement gave rise to renewal, where loss became the foundation for something greater. The Dalai Lama, now in his late 80s, remains a global ambassador for peace, his presence as gentle yet profound as ever. His teachings remind us that happiness is not found in material, wealth, or external achievements, but in cultivating inner contentment, kindness, and understanding. Isn't that ironic? A man who lost his homeland, the very ground beneath his feet, has become a teacher to the world, showing millions how to find home within themselves. Through his wisdom, he has transformed exile into an opportunity to transcend boundaries, both literal and metaphorical, offering lessons that resonate far beyond the Tibetan community. He teaches us that while we cannot always control what happens to us, we can choose how we respond. And in doing so, we can create meaning out of suffering. As for Nehru, his legacy lives on in the countless lives touched by his decision. What greater monument could a leader ask for than the gratitude of those he helped? Monuments of stone may crumble, statues may fade into obscurity, but the impact of compassion endures across generations. In welcoming the Dalai Lama and supporting the Tibetan people, Nehru did more than safeguard a culture. He reinforced the idea that humanity's strength lies in its interconnectedness. His choice continues to ripple outward, inspiring others to act with courage and conviction when faced with moral dilemmas. It reminds us that leadership is not about wielding power, but about using it wisely, ensuring that decisions made today will sow seeds of hope for tomorrow. Epilogue: the philosophy of compassion. What can we learn from this extraordinary story? That leadership is not about wielding power, but about lifting others up, even when it requires personal sacrifice or risks political fallout. True leadership lies in recognizing the humanity in every individual and acting with integrity, even when the path ahead seems uncertain. That compassion is not a weakness, as some might argue, but a profound strength, one that demands courage, humility, and an unwavering belief in the dignity of all people, and that sometimes the smallest acts of kindness, the opening of a door, the offering of a meal, the extension of refuge, can ripple outward like waves on water, changing lives in ways we cannot foresee. These seemingly simple gestures often carry within them the seeds of transformation, capable of bridging divides and fostering connections where none seemed possible. Isn't it beautiful how interconnected we all are? How one person's pain can become another's purpose, turning suffering into solidarity and despair into hope. The Dalai Lama's exile and Nehru's decision to welcome him were not isolated events. They were threads woven into the larger tapestry of human history, binding individuals and nations together across time and space. How remarkable it is that a single decision made in 1959, a moment born out of empathy and moral clarity, continues to inspire generations to believe in the possibility of a better world. It reminds us that our actions, no matter how small, have the potential to echo far beyond our lifetimes, shaping futures we may never see. Let us carry this story with us, not as a relic of the past, but as a call to action, a living reminder of what it means to lead with heart and act with conscience. When faced with suffering, will we turn away, allowing fear or indifference to guide us? Or will we step forward, choosing love over apathy, connection over separation? Will we let fear dictate our choices, closing borders and hardening hearts? Or will we choose to open ourselves to the needs of others, knowing that compassion is the foundation upon which meaningful change is built? After all, isn't that the ultimate philosophy of life? To live with an open heart, embracing vulnerability as a source of strength, to understand that every act of kindness, no matter how small, is a step toward healing the fractures of our world and nurturing the shared humanity that binds us all.